Coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we please take seats because we'll start in 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8,
7, 6.
Yeah, okay. Hello again. So everyone, we go now into session number 2 in the panel discussion and some more presentations about what are the needs and opportunities for Lithuania's energy transition. And I'm very happy that Virgilijus Poderys is now chairing this session and moderating it. And again, to remind you, he's chair of the Energy Commission here in the Parliament. So, Virgilijus, up to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Sveiki dar kartą.
Good morning once again. I hope that you have all taken your seats. If you need, put on your headphones. So we will have an hour and a half for the speeches and for the debate. So my proposal would be first to hear all the presentations and only then to move on with the discussion. I guess you agree with that. Without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Jurga Tallat-Kelpšaitė, who is a senior project manager, policy department of Clarion. I guess there was a mistake in the program with regard to the name of the company. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I come from a Clarion company, that is a consortium, and we implement an RP project in whose context we are here today. We had the RES targets already today, so I skip some of the slides. Let me present one of the elements of the project which have not been touched upon before. We will cover some of the targets and the Renewables Directive and the action plan. We've seen the guidelines for Lithuania for 2020. I will not repeat myself. The bulk of my presentation will focus on hindrances to development of renewables. Our company is tasked to identify hurdles to renewable development in EU. We will input the data into the data bank, and sectoral representatives in EU member states will base their knowledge on this information. I'll start with the database. During the project, we will create a publicly available database with 3 parts, including factual situation in EU member states on renewables. Also, investment climate in wind and solar energy. One of the databases will focus on identifying barriers, and we will thus monitor the changes during the 4 years, new hurdles and disappearance of hurdles and so on. And the third part of the database will include scenarios on how EU member states purport to achieve the goals. And this will be available until 2020 goals are reached. This is the place Lithuania takes in terms of renewables directive. 23% is the target for renewables share in the energy mix. The target was achieved in 2014. In 2015, the target was 25.86, and we saw that the percentage in recent years has fallen down, but we hope for its increase in future. Let's take transport. The situation is not as good in Lithuania and in all EU member states. The target is 10% for renewables for 2020. Today, only 3 countries have reached the objective, and the statistics date back to 2015, so maybe today the situation is different. Sweden and Finland are well on track, whereas Lithuania is way behind. Based on data from 2015, we reached 4.6% in transport. Let's take the national action plan. In the electricity sector, in the years 14 and 15, Lithuania was behind the schedule, but not far away behind. In heating and cooling sector, the situation is far better. We have outperformed the target. The red color goes for the plans, and the green goes for the real situation. This is the transport sector. Additional measures for renewables and their expansion in transport are needed. So Lithuania could find it difficult to reach the goal by 2020. What are the hurdles? You will receive the presentations later on, and you can increase the visibility and see what's written here, because the letters are too small for you to read. We have collected all the problems that EU member states face in increasing the share of renewables in the energy mix. In order to group the hurdles and to analyze them, we decided to categorize the groups of hurdles. You can see the groups on the right of the slide. The identified hurdles you can see in the slide. Blue is the dominant color, and this stands for hurdles related to political and economic system. So all EU member states had those problems. They share them. Other groups of hurdles include regulation, administrative processes, and other hurdles, including sustainability criteria, training, installed capacity certificates, and public awareness. So, hurdles related to market structure were the least problematic for all EU member states. If we take the situation in Lithuania, the dominant hurdles relate to political and economic system, but the proportion of the problems have been communicated to a larger extent. What are the rest of the problems that were communicated to us during the study in Lithuanian energy sector? I'll concentrate on the power and transport sector. The more so since these are the areas where Lithuania has to do more to reach the targets. Let's begin with the hurdles in the renewables and technology. Problem number one, identified in the previous study as well, was the lack of a long-term vision for renewables. This is a problem for both power generation sector, heating and transport sector alike. Today, we had a draft on renewable energy sources and on a strategy for energy. This means that the draft will be developed and result in adoption of a strategy. I hope for more guidelines after the strategy is adopted, and this will be the guiding star for the energy sector representatives. The second limiting factor was the limitation under the renewable energy law of some capacities. The projected some capacities will have to be increased, and the extent to which they will be increased is quite difficult to imagine right now, but I'm happy that there are attempts to do that. The design capacities will have to be increased. Municipalities had to draft plans by 2012, but so far only a couple of municipalities have plans, regional plans in place for the use of renewables, for development use of renewables in the regions. The next problem was lack of funding. Under the climate change special program, the money afforded was not sufficient, and it was only allocated to individuals for installing equipment in their individual homes. If we take technology-specific problems for wind energy generation, the main problem identified in 2016 was the plan for amending the law on renewables, and the government was to be tasked with the responsibility to carry out studies, and the companies were afraid of not being allowed to build offshore power plants. The amendments were adopted and will come into force soon, but companies will still have an opportunity to take part in tenders. So their fears did not meet with reality. Some companies, though, invested some of the money into research, into studies, and if they will not be the winners in tenders, they will have certain problems. So the next problem is related to description of procedures. There is none such so far. Solar energy-related hurdles relate to accounting, because this is a new system in Lithuania. At the end of 2016, many problems related to accounting for solar energy generation. One of them included the fee for electricity production, and the benefit from the grid was not accounted for. Persons who can use the system are limited in number, but some changes took place after 2016, and now individuals and legal persons can both use these meters. Legal entities with design capacity under 100 megawatts can use the meters for solar, wind, and biomass energy generation. Administrative procedures also represent a problem. It takes a long while to that amounts to 5 or 6 months to install equipment, and this should improve because amendments to legislation have taken place, and now we expect that, that it will only take a couple of weeks rather than months in Lithuania. As for funding, we had a debate in the first section today. Structural funds are not duly allocated, not duly funded. Cogeneration and biomass received a lot of funding, while wind potential did not receive funding. The funding under rural development programs account for a minor percentage. Let's move on to transport. Apart from the lack of a long-term vision, other problems relate to a small local market, public resistance to biomass inclusion into fuels, and resistance to the use of biofuel. Since sectoral representatives thought that biomethane production under market prices is not attractive for Lithuania, so non-methane biofuel is not produced in Lithuania. In conclusion, I believe that more focus should be put on transport and power generation. For transport, implementation of the new energy strategy should be done ASAP, so political insecurity is diminished and the long-term vision is in place, so that long-term investment is provided to the sector. Total installed capacity has to be reviewed, and measures need to be implemented for the transport sector. We can learn from countries that have achieved the 10% target. Support to methane in transport, in public transport, should be ensured. Requirement to mix fuels should be established, and so on. I will leave you at that. Thank you, Jurga, for such an interesting, insightful, and well-structured presentation. That's an interesting way of learning how we look to others. Colleagues, all the presentations will be made available to you, so you don't need to make notes. They will be available on the web pages of Euroforest and on the Seimas website. The conclusion from Jurga to me is that market participants lack the general strategy, the general vision. And this week, the Seimas will move on to deliberations on the strategy. And it's important to ensure that the strategy is implemented. 5 to 8 years ago, projects were implemented that were not in the strategy, and the projects under the strategy were not implemented. That was a paradox. We had a strategy, that was good, but implementation is even better. Our next keynote speaker is Giedrius Kvedaravičius, Director of the Department for Service Development of ESO. As you know, network operator, distribution network operator is very important, and their viewpoints are hugely important. Are they looking for hurdles, or are they changing their business models? to facilitate. The floor is yours.
My name is Giedrius Kvedaravičius and I'm representative of Lithuanian DSO. First of all, thank you very much for opportunity to express our DSO opinion about decentralized generation. And thank you, Poderisa, for very good introduction and challenging us for changing our business models and, of course, being on the top of leadership for making adjustments in our market. So, first of all, what I wanted to say that Lithuanian and globally energy sector is changing. Previously, we had linear production to consumption when we had big factories producing electricity, and we had very clear roles. For example, if consumer consumes, then there is no possibility to generate electricity. And this model is changing, and probably we will see drastic changes in the next 5 years. And of course, we had, let's say, conventional industry, which required, let's say, ordinary electricity, relatively low quality. What we are seeing and what challenges we are facing, so first of all, is customer engagement and the decentralization. Now everybody can install solar power plants or wind power plants, and what also we are seeing is high requirements for power and supply. New industries are emerging. They are looking for higher quality of electricity, and we have to adapt about it. And of course, it's quite a big challenge because renewables also participating in this big picture and has its influence. Also, what we are seeing, automatization and digitalization. In other words, big data. We need to adapt to it. We need to have systems in order to provide services which meet customer requirements. And what we are seeing, real-time operations will be necessity in a few years from now. To do that, we are making active steps. First of all, smart meters. None of this is possible if Lithuania does not install smart meters. We prepared CBA, which are now presented to a regulatory body, and hopefully smart meters will be approved and it will be installed and till 2023. I just wanted to highlight one more time because smart meters is essential and very first step in order for us to have better tools to manage our network and for customers to be engaged in the system. Second of all, we are preparing Data Hub. Data Hub is basically system IT platform where all the marketplace data will be centralized. With this platform, we will be able to offer new services, such as, for example, direct selling and producing electricity from one customer to another customer, including from one household to another household. Also, we will be able to offer new services such as power regulation when we offer a fee for customer, let's say, who allows us to lower the power required at specific time. Or, for example, independent suppliers will be able to present new tariffs based on real-time electricity price, on which, of course, customer can adjust its behavior and have better, let's say, economic benefits. Of course, we also need to install new equipment, innovative equipment. Nowadays, what we are doing is installing reclosers and a new generation of transformers, which automatically can adjust the voltage, and based on how many generation sources are in a specific area, transformer can adjust the voltage in order to ensure the quality of electricity. And of course, what we did last year, together with Ministry of Energy, we prepared 8 steps prosumer promotion plan. Mostly it was dedicated for optimizing connection process to the grid, review of financial incentives and market model, and of course, education of customers. Now, most of this plan is implemented, and I would go more into details. So it's 8 steps described in this picture. First of all, what we see, that we need to eliminate procedures. So we eliminated 3 procedures, which is pre-connection technical conditions, 2 permissions to connect to the grid. Of course, we looked at the possibility to reduce fees, and of course, we reviewed the financial incentives. So when we were looking last year at the process, a customer had to go through about 15 different steps in order to get connected to the grid. And it took about 7 months. It's really huge and long process. So what we did together with Ministry of Energy, we reviewed it, and from 1st of November, we'll see this process. So
Of this year.
Of this year. So thankfully, law has been changed, and it will get in force from 1st of November. So we eliminated about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 procedures, and also what response we get from the market, that the whole implementation cost for getting electricity power plant will decrease about by 1,000 euros, looking from whole cost from customer view. So the process looked like this. When customer has to submit only application, sign connection agreement, install the equipment, and in case customer wants, he can sign agreement with an independent supplier. If he wants to stay with the DSO before the deregulation of the market, then there is only one agreement, connection agreement, which also includes part regarding supply of electricity. And when we are looking what we have a situation in Lithuania, we look from perspective of business models and support mechanisms, financial support. So when we see the business models, there are 3 generations. First one is sell or purchase of the equipment. When customer has to make a large upfront payment, and he has to bear all the technology and financial risk. Second generation is basically lease. Now we have some of the banks offering, but still interest rates are really high. And third generation is like Tesla Solar City model, when customer has to pay only for electricity bill, and all the technological, financial risk is borne by third party. In Lithuania, I would say we are between first and second generation. So this is the area for the improvement in the future for the banks, for companies which install the equipment. Looking from financial support, there are also 3 generations. First one is financial tariffs. Second one is net metering scheme. And third generation is production as consumed, when solutions are based on energy efficient solutions. When customers install the required electricity solar power plant to meet their needs, and this ensure sustainable renewable energy development. In Lithuania, I would say we have quite a good situation. We have net metering scheme, and also we have some elements of production as consumed, when customers are supported and encouraged to install the specifically designed size solar power plant for them, so they can get the best economic benefits. So my presentation is going towards the end, and this is the scheme of how we calculated the business case for installing the solar power plant. The top line is for households, and yellow line is for businesses. So we see that our projection that households will have a solid business case to install solar power plant by year 2019. Businesses, unfortunately, will have by 2021 by additional support. This plan would help to achieve that we earlier the implementation and the business case for households. Now we can expect that without financial support, households will start installing solar power plants by year 2018, and businesses will have a solid business case to install this solar power plants by year 2020. So this is presentation from DSO, and in fact we had three options, let's say, when we faced the decentralized situation. So first one, of course, we can oppose it, we can adapt it, and we can take active leadership. And we would like to be on the third option and to be active leaders for implementing and encouraging decentralized generation. So thank you very much.
Dėkui, Giedriau, ypatingai už tuos.
Thank you, Giedrius, especially for the last words, especially for promoting this third proactive approach. And I hope what you will receive the questions regarding your plans. They seem very beautiful, but I wonder whether they will be implemented in real life. I know that there will be quite a few discussions, but I guess everyone will wonder when all these solutions will be implemented. But let's leave them for the discussion. And I guess it would be difficult to imagine our discussion without the representatives from the wind energy sector. So I'd like to give the floor now to Aistis Radavičius, Executive Director of the Lithuanian Wind Power Association.
Actually, presentation in English. I thought it's going to be an English-speaking conference, but I might as well continue in English. Practice makes you better. So, my name is Aistis. I represent the wind power producers, and today I'm going to speak about the wind energy potential in Lithuania. Well, we all heard the minister's presentation of the strategy. I wanted to start with saying that we share the targets with the ministry, but unfortunately 2 days ago we received the project which stepped back from 100% renewables to 80% renewables. So I can no longer go around Europe saying that my country will go 100% renewables. So, but still, it's a long way to go, and in my presentation, I just want to focus on the more near future. So just going straight to the renewable electricity. This is a slide from strategy, which says that we should have more or less 50% of renewables by 2030, and this is how it. And the next slide will show how it breaks down for wind. Ministry proposes that the electricity consumption from renewables should rise until 6.3 terawatt hours in 2030. At this point, it's quite hard to predict the market even in 5 years. So, but let's see what it means for wind. So, if we break down the numbers in the strategy, it is predicted that this year we will have 1,300 gigawatt hours. That's 1.3 terawatt hours from wind. Right now, as we speak, we are about 900 gigawatt hours. So that's we're on the track. The strategy says that production should rise in 2020 just above 2 terawatt hours and reach 3.5 terawatt hours in 2030. How it is converted in installed capacity? Right now we have 510 megawatts installed, and in order to reach 3.5 terawatt hours production, we should have around 1,235 megawatts by 2030. Is this an ambitious goal? To answer this, let's have a look at what Wind Europe predictions are. It's hard to see, but Wind Europe estimated Lithuania's potential up to 1,500 megawatts onshore until 2030 in the high scenario. So the proposed scenario in the strategy could be sufficient, but if we only consider the onshore development. as I mentioned before, the proposition is about 1, 2, 3, 5, so that's between the central and high scenarios in the wind Euro predictions. But then the question is, does the strategy involve the offshore wind development? Well, to answer that, we have to say a few words about the offshore. Earlier this year, some changes been done to renewable energy law, changing the regulation on offshore development and saying that the seabed research, cost and benefit evaluations, grid connection cost and other necessary evaluations will be conducted, and this will take around 3 years. So according to this timetable, we should have the results reached by 2021, 2022, and according to that, we could expect first offshore parks in Lithuania in 2025, 2026. So, and in result of this, there is no clear vision on offshore in the strategy. And it equals to no clear division between onshore and offshore wind in the strategy. Although the potential is really promising, Wind Europe and BVG associates evaluated the potential of Baltic offshore wind energy market, and not only Baltic, the whole Europe's potential. And they named the most economically attractive places to develop offshore. In this map, the red color means the bigger cost. The green means the lower cost. So if you see that the red color is mostly far away from the coast, and also in the icy regions of the Baltic Sea at the Finnish and Swedish coasts. And if you just see Lithuanian coast, it's mostly green. Also Latvia as well. It wasn't mentioned before, I think, but just a few weeks ago in Tallinn, there was a Baltic Sea offshore declaration signed by all the associations of wind energy across the Baltic Sea, and as well as Wind Europe. And this declaration is calling the European Commission and the national governments to support and coordinate actions concerning offshore wind development in the Baltic Sea. Just a few more words about Lithuanian, and just to conclude on the study says that Germany, Latvia, and Lithuania have the most economically attractive offshore potential in the Baltic Sea region. Well, Germany is already doing it. Lithuania is also have the maritime spatial plan in place since 2015, and there are territories designated for offshore wind. It's more than 1,000 square kilometers designated for that. But let's leave the offshore and come back to the ground. So what are the main challenges, constraints, worries from the government side and from the investor side? As we see it, and as the Member of Parliament, Virginijus Poderys, already mentioned, the main worries that we see from the government side is grid stability. Will the wind not destroy the electricity system if we integrate more of it? Won't we have blackouts if wind doesn't blow? Second is grid availability. Is the grid strong enough to integrate more? Does it need to be upgraded? And if yes, how much it will cost? That's concern number 3. And then, of course, how much will it cost for the consumers? Well, I also have a list of constraints from the investor side, which is quite extensive as well, but maybe next time. I will not stop here, because who cares about the investor? So I just go straight to the worries from the government. So, grid stability. So wind turbine. I'm not the expert. I can proudly acknowledge that I'm not the expert on the grid, but I know that wind turbines can provide grid stability services. They do. Please do not ask me to describe those, but I know experts who know how that works, and actually today in the room we have quite a few producers, wind producers, so I would like also I like to ask them to intervene later on in the discussion and tell a few words about that. I also would like to announce that one of such great experts is coming to Lithuania next month. His name is Peter Jorgensen. He is from Danish TSO Energinet. He is the vice president there. And he's going to be speaking at the Valstybė Energy Conference on the 8th of November, where he will give a presentation on Danish experience while integrating high volumes of wind. So I really recommend the local audience to go and listen. That might clear things out. Okay, next, grid availability. According to our Lithuanian TSO lit grid, up to 500 megawatts of additional wind above the current that we have can be integrated without the reconstruction of the grid. It just involved the minor cost of building substations. While integrating higher volumes requires substantial investments, upgrading the grid. Additional 1,000 megawatts above the current should require up to 100 million euros. The study also says that if we build more wind, we need substantial reserve capacity to be built as well, which should cost us a huge amount of money. It says that integrating 1,000 megawatt of wind requires 400 megawatts of new reserve capacity. Well, I would like to leave that for debate as well for the experts, as this study appears to be conducted for isolated conditions. And it does not evaluate the benefits of common balancing market that starts next year. So I think that's a very interesting discussion among experts regarding this point. Next, cost for consumers. This is one of my favorite charts showing how fast the wind price has dropped in the last 5 years in Lithuania and how close it is to the market price. So in 5 years it dropped more than 40%, and the last tender was 56 euros in 2015. That was actually a record until Spain broke it last year with 43 euros. And well, we expect it to even be lower if we have auctions, let's say next year. In addition to this, we have calculated that if we install 350 additional megawatts onshore, this should cost around 11 million a year for subsidies. But this eventually bears no additional cost for consumer, because in the period between 2019 and 2023, 8 wind parks, almost 140 megawatts, will be out of subsidy scheme. They will stop receiving subsidies, and that releases 18 million euros per year. So that totally covers the new installations. And this can be done by choosing the right support scheme. If we use the sliding feed-in premium support scheme, then the producer trades electricity in the market himself. The producer is also responsible for balancing. The sliding premium above the market price is paid to the producer. So, I'm sorry. So, in case of increasing market price, this premium is less. In case of low market prices, the premium is higher. But in case of low market prices, lots of wind is blowing and lots of electricity is supplied to the grid. So it knocks the market prices down and the consumer benefits. So to our opinion, this scheme optimizes the financial cost for consumers, and it also provides revenue stability for producers. So just to sum up what was told, the proposed development of wind in national energy strategy is adequate if to be allocated to onshore. Offshore development is postponed for almost a decade, so we really should focus on onshore right now. Wind can contribute to lower prices in the market and grid stability. And wind is the cheapest form of, if we speak about new electricity installations, and up to 500 megawatts, it bears no additional cost for the grid. And our proposals, very concrete proposals, is to make clear distinction between the onshore and offshore development in the strategy. We believe that it would be wise to set a clear 5-year framework for additional 350 megawatts onshore, not sticking to 2020, because this would make a certain visibility and certainty for the investors. We also propose that there should be a study conducted on grid availability after 2022. Well, of course, it should be done before, but just to see exactly where we are after 2022. And this would make also sense, having in mind that the results about the offshore is supposed to come around that year. So it would make sense to have a study on the grid availability after that year. And the last point is that we acknowledge that offshore has great potential, but if it is included, we need to revise the renewable energy targets. Otherwise, there is no room for 2 wind technologies. Thank you very much.
Dėkui, Aisti, ačiū už labai gerai.
Thank you, Aistis, for a well-balanced presentation. You touched upon the most important topics, and indeed, if Litgrid representatives were here, they would question your figures as to whether they relate to island or isolation regime. Now we will go on to municipalities and municipal figures. I will give the floor to Mr. Bakas. He will speak about Kaunas city experiences, sustainable energy, good practices and main challenges. Municipalities can apply other strategies and other industries can be used. Rimantas Bakas comes from Kaunas, the second largest city in Lithuania.
Good afternoon. I represent the city of Kaunas. And, well, I am a political representative, but I was asked to speak on certain figures related to central heating in Kaunas. So I will speak about the expectations of the city, about the plans for the Kaunas city. The company Kaunas Energy is a municipal company. The municipality holds 92.84% of shares. We are the second largest producer of heat in Lithuania. Our company serves the city of Kaunas, the region of Kaunas, and the town of Jurbarkas. Kaunas is also part of the Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy. By 2020, Kaunas intends to reduce the CO2 emissions in buildings and in industry by 45,910 tons. We will contribute to the CO2 emissions by renovating buildings, We will also renew urban lighting system. Well, as it has already been said, we have to say thanks to Mr. Putin for our energy efficiency plans, because we now know that we can survive without gas. Well, we remember that the prices for gas were very high, and we had a private heat producer in Lithuania. There was a competition among private producers and state-owned producers. The competition was not fierce, though, and the prices increased, but the regulation environment changed. And we changed the legal environment in 2012. We had to look at the plans for the company. We had to invest not only into the maintenance of network, but also to the production. The investment into the company increased significantly because we used the European funds. Now, looking at the fuel mix that is used by the company, we would notice that in 2012, we used mainly gas, which accounted for almost 92%. And if you looked at the fuel mix in 2016, you would notice that gas now accounts for only 18%, whereas the other fuel accounts for 81%. This slide shows the dynamics of sources of biofuel generation in 2013-2017. We had quite a few private investors in the Kaunas cities. In 2013, the prices were very high, but then a lot of new producers came into play. We ensure supply regime for Kaunas and for Kaunas region. Last year, 2 private biofuel cogeneration boilers were installed in Kaunas, and this contributed to lower prices. Now we are looking forward to the projects of company Lithuanian Energy and Fortumas. We hope that in 2 years' time we will have new additional capacities. As far as the production of biofuel is concerned, here you see the figures for 2015 and 2016. That is the fuel balance in Kaunas. As you see, the share of biofuels is increasing in Kaunas city. We either generate heating ourselves, or we take heating from our partners. The share of renewables in the production of heating is gradually increasing. These are the figures for Lithuania and Kaunas. The statistics has been taken from the Heating Supply Association. The average for Lithuania was the average of biofuel and waste used for the production of heating accounted for 64% in Lithuania, whereas in Kaunas the figure stood at 80% in 2016. Here you see the fluctuation of prices for heating since the year 2011. Well, there is a trend that the prices are increasing in winter, whereas they are decreasing in summer. We have to identify, to establish the prices every month. So this is the reason for the fluctuation, behind the fluctuation of the prices. Here you see the slide showing the dynamics of price for central heating in the months of October. And this is the price for central heating in euro cents per kilowatt hour. The prices in the energy market were rather high. And the price for biofuels increased by 25%. Now, this slide shows the dynamics of prices for district heating in Kaunas and other Lithuanian cities. These are the prices compared in 2012, 2014, 2015, and 2017. So from the slides, you can see that Kaunas city had the highest price for heating in 2012, whereas now there is an upward trend, and we are happy. The residents of the city of Kaunas are also happy. The City of Kaunas has drafted a strategy on supplying central heating to the city of Kaunas. The strategy was drafted last year. We are mainly interested in the situation of cogeneration, that is the approach to cogeneration in the national energy strategy. So after we know the situation with the cogeneration, we will develop our own plans. So we do not intend to produce electricity, but well, we have to know what the situation will be like with regard to cogeneration. We have also envisaged a certain investment into the production of heating. We have provided the figures to the National Commission for Energy Control and Prices. We will soon have a plan for the year 2020. We produce heating not only by using gas and biofuel. We have plans to use solar energy for producing heating. We are still trying to find some ways to get to certain support schemes in order to get financing for the investment. We hope that we will be eligible for support. We believe that concentrated solar panels would be more efficient for the society. So instead of installing solar panels on each house, on each residential building or commercial building, it would be wiser to have a kind of solar panel islands, just like they have it in Denmark or other countries. So we have to know the plan so that we could ensure our investment. Investment into the grid remains our priority. We have already received much support with regard to our investment to the grid. And investment into the grid does not give any return, but we have to ensure reliability of the grid. So in the future, we're going to submit the application for support. We are currently getting ready for the process. We know that after 2020, the financial support will reduce substantially. Therefore, we have to balance the heating sector in order to ensure that we will be able to sustain even after 2020 when the support diminishes. As far as the situation with the clients is concerned, so I'd like to note that our company joined 9 new buildings of different purpose. This is residential buildings, commercial buildings, and plants and factories, the total area of which accounts for 27,000 square meters. The increasing number of clients over the recent years demonstrate that our clients are confident in the company. We have managed to ensure competitive prices, which are gradually reducing. Well, so far, we are not thinking of using any other sources of wind, but other sources are taken into consideration. Thank you. Those who are not from Lithuania should be reminded that Kaunas is an example of a city which has a heating producer market when they have 7 or 8 different producers of heat and they compete among each other. So I guess countries can learn from the example of Kaunas. Thank you for mentioning the problem related to what we should develop, whether it should be cogeneration or biofuels. We have to see a clear vision. Thank you for reminding us. And our last keynote speaker for the dessert will be Mr. Martynas Nagevičius, President of the Lithuanian Renewable Energy Confederation.
I'm sorry.
Good afternoon.
I will speak in Lithuanian just in order to make my presentation shorter or to make it more comprehensive for taking the same time. So,
my presentation will be divided into 2 parts. The first will cover common European problems in renewables, and the second part will focus on local problems. As for European issues, I have a question. In the EU, as champions on talking on renewables, we are not leaders in the area for some reason, for a long time now. Based on development and investment into renewables, China and the US are well ahead of us, both in relative terms, and the developing countries also are way ahead. The reasons are several. First of all, the schemes of support differ. In China, state planning is in place. The politicians in China can see that it pays off for an economy to develop renewables. So they develop it without any taking account into the market design. As a liberally thinking person, I don't like this system, but renewables and their development is ideally placed for that. The US are now against fight with the climate change. They are for fossil fuels, but renewables are developing there faster than in the EU because they support, the business supports renewables. There's a scheme where a business supports the development of renewables by getting tax subsidies or tax levies. And this works because Americans love tax levies, even more than Europeans do, and they prefer getting tax levies than to support from state. Large-scale American companies prefer being green and buying green energy. They go into long-term agreements, getting benefits from tax levies. In the EU, we have a conflict between consumers and development of renewables, because all the costs for development of renewables are to be paid by consumers through VAP, energy, and in Germany, and other taxes. Politicians represent end users because there are more end users than producers, and the conflict is a hurdle to development of renewable energy. Another problem is that in the EU there are 28 economic areas with 28 differing sets of interests, which don't often coincide. It's a good way to be tourist in the EU because Helsinki and Lisbon are different. But for energy, this is a hindrance. Let me explain the reasons. We often say that renewable technologies are getting cheaper, and that's true. Last week there was an auction of solar energy in Germany, and the cheapest feed-in tariff was 46 euros per kilowatt hour. It's lower than the average marketplace in Lithuania, but for some reason wind energy is still subsidized because of the self-cannibalism effect. The development of renewables creates more demand for energy and decreases the prices for energy. So at the time when energy is produced in the highest volumes, the price of the energy production is higher than the market price. Let's take the price of wind power plants. They are lower, but energy production is increasing, and this is the reason why, and this will continue to be so in future. Maybe we will not need to increase the VAP, but we may, because of the so there's a conflict between EU member states. One of the previous speakers said that market structure represents a few problems, but the hurdles are difficult to overcome. There's a huge intention of some EU member states to import cheaper energy from other countries due to the lower prices in the neighboring countries. So, through increasing the links, we will promote the increase of subsidies, and it will be difficult to make the Czechs develop renewables. So maybe we'll import Norwegian or Swedish electricity or energy instead of promoting a production of our own. I have two solutions for that, either taxing the supply or returning the subsidies to the countries that paid for them, but this practically is impossible. And the second scheme or solution would be to make a common renewable support scheme for all EU member states. This will mean if Lithuania constructs a wind power plant, all EU member states and the electricity consumers will pay for that through the services that are in line with public interests. This would increase the development of renewables in all EU member states. But the cannibalism effect would still remain. It works for traditional producers as well, because they also need to compete in the market where market prices are dwindling. At some point, they become not cost-effective. In profits, in terms of profits, German energy producers are losing their profits, and sooner or later, under low market prices, traditional producers such as gas-based or fossil fuel-based and nuclear power plants will close down, not because somebody asks for their removal, but just because it doesn't pay off for them to work. There's a need to have a reserve capability for installing sustainability of energy, so permanent prices will ensure for other kinds of energy and not for renewable energy. And the second problem will be exacerbated. In ECOFIN, Ministers of Finance of the EU talked about that last week. That was, in fact, the increase thing for subsidies for fossil fuel. Subsidies for fossil fuels will continue to be a problem if they exist. There are direct subsidies for fossil fuels, such as subsidies for coal miners, social support for miners, and subsidies for investors into terminals and gas terminals and gas pipelines, subsidies for end users so they can afford the energy because of the energy poverty. Every subsidy has a nice motive, such as security of or social needs, but this stops the EU's transformation, prevents transformation. There are also indirect subsidies. The European, let's say, we have a fossil fuel production in a country, they get free fossil fuels, and they should pay for this, but instead Bangladesh or Seychelles Islands pay for that due to the influence or increased influence of climate change. So they subsidize a German-based, let's say, German-based power plant. Last week, this was discussed in the finance ministers at ECOFIN. So the taxation should be implemented. There's another problem. Consumption of electricity by third countries that don't pay taxes for CO2 emissions. Now let's move on to Lithuanian energy strategy. What is an energy strategy? There are some people who think that energy strategy is a document that needs to be prepared, drafted once in 5 years, and it's our job, that's our task in it. I don't think it's a good approach. There are some others who think that this is a way to predict the future. This is not a way to predict the future. Nobody can predict the future. Nobody can do guesswork about the future. And the Lithuanian Energy Ministry is not best placed to do guesswork either. This is not just a plan for ensuring work for 5 years of employees of the Energy Ministry. No, it's a signal to consumers, business, investors, a signal on the way the state can see the future of the energy system in the country. Based on that strategy, business will react, whether invest or not. Because business attempts to become compatible with the long-term plans of the state. What signal for business is envisaged in our energy strategy? Well, it's a twofold signal. On the one hand, there's a good belief in the future of the renewable energy. And Ministry of Energy deserves praise on that count because they understand the prospects for renewables. For 2015, they intend to have 80% share of renewables. Investment into technology is promoted in the energy document. That's important, too. But another message is that we will develop renewables, but not now. Now we will only develop it only to the extent the EU demands us to do so, and we will try to ask the EU to lower the targets for me. Biomass generation, let's take. Biomass cogeneration is not to be developed. There's no it's not envisaged into the strategy. There are only 3 bio cogeneration power plants. There are no plans for CO2 emissions to be decreased. Gas, natural gas, is to be at the same level by 2050. There are many words about the Paris Conference on climate change and on gas, but we have CO2 emissions that are highest. And we can't see any ways to envisage a strategy to diminish that. There are no measures. We don't see the measures under the strategy. But we criticize the Vilnius city municipality on the account that it buys diesel-run buses. This will continue to be the fact in future if municipalities are not promoted to buy other kinds of transport. If we buy buses that run on non-fossil fuels, but we are not supported on that, nothing will happen. If the draft of the strategy will adopt it in the way it is formulated now, it will not be the West strategy of energy in EU member states, but it will not be an energy strategy that would invoke Siemens or Edward Musk in their wishes to buy a ticket to go to Lithuania. No, it's a document full of unclarities. As a former teacher, I will tell you, it looks like a draft paper of a good student who knows how to write a paper without becoming a problem to a teacher. But it's a student who doesn't really believe in what he's writing. There's no energy behind. There's no fire, no emotion. So I would invite the stakeholders to make sure that the strategy ensures that there are queues of investment coming to ministries of energy and agriculture to invest in Lithuania. Thank you.
Thank you for the fundamental insights that you have provided us. Well, you have raised the question regarding to the strategy, to the national strategy. Well, of course, this question will remain. I'm grateful for the insight that no one has touched upon. Well, we have the strategy, but do we have the strategy and the budget for the CO2 emissions, for addressing the CO2 emissions? Thank you. Now, I open the floor for discussions. As far as I know, you want to say something about the FCO fund. Then I'll give the floor to Jurga. Who's the third? I can't see, but I guess you will introduce later on. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Laima Pilukaitė from the European Commission representation.
In Lithuania, so I'm not for discussion, just for informing. In total, there are... Gal aš tada lietuviškai pasakiau.
Currently, according to the statistics, 280 million euros invested into FC, and you asked about the energy projects. So from the major 4 projects, I can mention the reconstruction of the road Vilnius-Utena, which accounts for 40 million euros and 44% of the total funding. The reconstruction of Vilnius airport, 32 million euros, accounting to 42%, and 190 million is the loan from the European Investment Bank to the Vilnius cogeneration plant. There is yet one more investment plan for the Baltcap infrastructure funds. Companies can address this fund because of if they want to invest into certain projects. FC projects are also intended for other smaller projects, so I didn't want to take much of your time. Thank you very much. Jurga, you wanted to respond because your name was mentioned. I simply wanted to say, well, yes, the problems that you have raised are pertinent. There are certain hurdles, and there are more hurdles than we have presented in our diagram. But as I have mentioned in my presentation, our information is based on the sectorial data. We start the interview, we hear the representatives of the sector, we identify the information, we put the information down. So if you want to have a look at the hurdles of the national of member states, you will be able to have a look at them on the internet. Also, those hurdles, problems have been assessed according to the severity from 1 to 5. And they have a actually, this was being done in order to show how complex, how difficult the problems are. So if you are interested, you can have a look at the weight of the problem. Someone on my left, and then who will be next to ask the question? Aidas Bernatonis, Lithuanian Wind Power Association. Well, in Lithuania, we hear very few wind and success stories of farmers or small, medium businesses. One of the reasons for that was that the current system did not provide the promotion of individual grids, and majority of the quotas were allocated to bigger power plants, whereas individuals were fighting for 1 or a few megawatts of capacity. Currently, the Ministry of Energy said that the quota will be 250 megawatts. There was a tender announced. There were a few winners. The ministry issued 2 permissions, and it seems that we have achieved the targets. However, when the government speaks about the local investment or the promotion of local initiative, I wonder how this future quota will be distributed in the future and whether local investors will be supported in the future. I was pleased to hear that the approach to small energy has been changing, so I hope that in future documents you will also envisage how this balance implemented. I guess it is the minister that has to respond now. I know what the minister might say, so I will respond on behalf of him. There is a separate support scheme envisaged for the development of renewable energy sources in communities. In November last year, there was a new package and a draft renewable directive envisaging that member states have to implement the support scheme for individual communities for projects with a capacity of 18 megawatts. So I guess there are good perspectives in this area. Giedrius Federavičius from the distribution system operator. What will happen in reality? Well, yes, the law on renewable resources in Lithuania was changed. There were certain quotas established for solar energy, but with the amendment of the law, we have also provided for solar energy and wind energy production. So this prosumer scheme will be applied not only for businesses, but for private physical persons who will be entitled to install small wind power plants, whereas communities will be able to install up to 100 megawatts of capacity wind plants. Well, I'd like to respond. A 100 kilowatt plant is an old-fashioned thing, and no one will ever build it. Therefore, I believe you have to rethink this. Well, at first you spoke against bigger power plants, and now you are speaking against smaller ones. I'm Kęstutis Tarkus from Orlen, Lietuva, the oil refinery company. Well, I feel like I am in a bit of a hostile environment, being from the petrol station, but I was carefully listening to the discussions. Well, we often hear that the oil sector is dying out, but I guess we still focus a bit on oil. We have to enumerate and identify the problems related to the transport sector. In other sectors, the target is set for 20 or 30%, whereas in transport, the target is up to 5%. Within the EU, there are several countries which made every effort to achieve the target, and Lithuania is not among them. So among the problems in transport sector, we should identify some other essential problems. I guess that biofuel producers were interviewed. The target of biofuel production is 7%, so I wonder what the sector is aiming at. The oil sector has other targets under other EU documents. So we have to know how to make sure that the targets are implemented. We have to look at the electrification and liquid second-generation fuel that account for 0.2%, even with the application of duplicators. So we have two key measures which are not operational. We don't have the spread of second-generation fuels, and the problem to that is that there is a lack of material. There are certain problems related to the provision, supply, importing of those materials. For example, used oil is in abundance in the European Union. We can import such oil from Arabian countries because Arabian countries cannot use the used oil once again. Unfortunately, the European Union restricts certain import of used oils. Spent oil. I guess importing of spent oil could solve quite a lot of our problems. As far as electrification is concerned, we have to look at the transport structure in Lithuania. 50% or even more consumption of fuel goes to the commercial transport. 20% is used by the transit transport. Lithuania faces the problem with the aging population, which means that people will start using less cars, and unfortunately the cargo transport will increase, and it is very difficult to electrify cargo transport, which means that it would be very difficult to achieve this 50% because we don't have the measures. We have not set the measures yet. So when defining the strategy, it is absolutely crucial to know what measures will be used. I'll finish at that. Thank you. I guess ministry representatives have jotted down the ideas that you have expressed. I guess liquefied natural gas could be used for that. The delegation has just returned from the conference. Heat Production Association. I recall the presentation of my colleague Rimantas Bakas. I don't know whether you have noticed that the price for heating, because of competitiveness, decreased by almost 50%, and Kaunas is exceptional in terms of heating prices in Lithuania and the European Union. So we have to use our national resources In Kaunas, we have abundant competing rival companies producing heat. That's why our prices for heating are reducing, but we have to ensure a level playing field for the companies. Currently, some companies face with more favorable conditions for their businesses. I wonder how the parliament perceives this problem and whether there are any parliamentary scrutiny mechanisms that could improve the situation. We know that the description for the procedure has been prepared, but no more impetus have been made. Thank you for the question. I'll be brief. Lithuania addresses a very fundamental question, how the heating market has to operate. The market has to be transparent, the energy regulator has to implement certain provisions. As the former head of this institution, I believe that it is not easy to think of a new model. We have talked a lot about the feed-in tariffs, but we have to think of the model for the heating sector. Despite that, as the law provides that heat producers have to compete among each other. So, well, you are right, absolutely right. The competitive council said that our market is not regulated properly here.
In the interest of time. Yes, sorry, just again, Joel Mechelaars from Wind Europe Trade Association in Brussels, representing the wind energy industry supply chain. I wanted to reflect on just a couple of points mentioned in the discussion and look into what sort of measures are being considered or are already part of the energy strategy going forward. First point mentioned by Mr. Nagavicius, how to ensure that wind and other forms of renewables actually have a value in the market. And secondly, a point already stressed also this morning, how to make sure our grid stays balanced. I think we see a wide range of measures being taken across Europe, again, that allow for flexibility, a flexible power market. And in that sense, it was encouraging to hear that on the distribution level, there's actually a lot of capacity available to implement some of these measures. But let me start by one that's been successfully implemented by Denmark in the recent 10 to 15 years, which is make sure your thermal power plants get more flexible too. You need to ensure that they can allow for steep ramp-up gradients, shorter startup times, have low but stable minimum generation levels. That requires looking into the longer-term scenarios and study the expected magnitude of the load fluctuation that they can deliver. I think secondly is how to make heating also flexible. Again, the example from Denmark, they have a lot of district heating as they decided to move on from oil and gas after the crisis in the 70s. They've managed to make district heating not just electricity provider, but also electricity consumers in times of high wind. There are incentives for boilers, there are incentives for boilers also through the ancillary services market where they can take part. And then there's demand-side flexibility, where again, I think the distribution grid comes in to a large extent. You need to make sure you can provide for some load shifting, but also some peak shaving. For example, through industry. Studies in the US show that only demand-side flexibility in the industry already shaves off 10% of your peak demand, which is significant. It's about the indirect uses of hydrogen as well. Which of course will be very useful going forward if you want to decarbonize heavy transport. Hydrogen is obviously one of the options out there. And then the whole electrification agenda, being it heat pumps in the houses of consumers or electric vehicles, which are not just our mode of transport will also just become batteries on wheels, as they are in use for 95% of the time. And then again, yeah, going to what we call system-friendly wind. ICTs refer to it. We just have to make sure that also wind generators can participate fully in this ancillary services market, which in not all of the countries is the case. Another option, just to highlight, and we'll come back to that, Mr. Porter, is with a more sophisticated paper, the options that wind turbines offer in terms of flexibility and ancillary services. The latest one I can mention, which I discovered yesterday on Twitter, is that there is now a hydrogen wind turbine being developed. A wind turbine that stores excess electricity right into a hydrogen facility next to the turbine itself. This is obviously a nice addition to the storage facilities some of the manufacturers like GE and Enercon are already putting next to their turbine. But all in all, I think what is crucial going forward when it comes to balancing the grid, assess system adequacy, regional. I think that's again where the Energy Union needs to come in. We can of course drive scenarios for thinking about what do we do if we were to be an island, but I think none of the markets will be an island in the end. And of course, looking at it from a regional perspective also allows you to drive down the cost for your system integration. And then, you know, you can rank the economic value of all these flexibility options and determine which measures need to be taken going forward and which ones need to be tackled in the energy strategy. So yeah, that just as a little addition to the debate, and look forward to hear to what extent this is also going to be part of your discussions going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your intervention. Any other norinčių?
Anyone else? Martinas? I have only one remark to make to Mr. Rimantas. If by 2020 you will have the 11th operator in your city, I guess you will have to tell to the mayor, Visvaldas Matijošaitis, because this new operator is planning to burn industrial waste. So, because we will not know whether cogeneration has been taken into account. This new player that might come to the market will deteriorate the situation in Kaunas. Well, when we signed the pact, the targets for biofuel were much lower. But even at that time, we thought that we won't be able to reach the target. But as far as the CO2 emissions are concerned and the new market player, I believe that the new player will come to the city to reduce the consumption of gas in our city. I also wanted to respond to you as far as cogeneration is concerned. I wanted to say that cogeneration is not the cogeneration of biofuel. That's why our assessment is much broader. Well, as far as I understand, we have run out of questions. Dear colleagues, I have made a conclusion from the discussion that the strategy that will soon be finalized is very ambitious. Unfortunately, market players have their concerns. This strategy might serve as a signal to investors. Also, we have to check whether we have calculated all the figures right, because there should be some compatibility between the figures and the slogans, those that we have heard. When we talk about energy, we have to address climate change too. We have to talk about the national budget, about the allocations from the budget, and this is what we lack. Well, there are some other problems, but in general, there is a positive trend. And I'd like to conclude with this discussion. I believe that we've had a lot of interesting and valuable insights from the ministry.
To close, to make the final speech and to close all this gathering.
Well, no real speech anymore. I want you to get out into the sunshine, actually. But just to say, this level of discussion that you have here is really amazing. It's not like that in every member state, I can tell you. It's very constructive, very forward-looking, and if you see where you came from and where you are right now, you can just be proud about it, despite all the details. We will report this back to the European Parliament and the European Commission, and we're very happy to see some shining examples. And again, I told the Minister before, please bring that enthusiasm into the Council, because that's exactly what we need in the coming weeks and months. And Joël, you confirmed that as well, that it's actually really difficult at the moment to get to any European positive forward-looking policy there. At the moment, most member states want to go back onto their national level, which is an electricity grid, just nonsense, for example. But well, I don't want to give another political speech now, just to say thanks to everybody for your time, for your interest, also for the hosts and for the Parliament for being here. Mr. Poderis, thanks for the excellent debate here. And well, we hope to be back the next 2-3 years to see the next steps then with the national action plans then. And we hope that we hear your stories much, much more in Brussels. So thanks a lot. Have a great day, have a great weekend, and thanks a lot to everyone.
Thank you.